Hey friends. How's it going on, guys and girls? This is Aquila Painting. My name's Graham and welcome to the channel. So some friends and I were chatting in our local gaming store about paints and different things of the hobby, and this subject of speed paints came up. Mainly it was who's using them, who's not, the pros and cons, and it was out of the two main contenders, Citadel Contrast Paints and Army Painter Speed Paints. I said that I haven't actually used the speed painting range before, and my new friend Chris said he has it, and very kindly let me borrow it to have a play around with and maybe make some videos. So thank you very much, Chris. Seriously, if they're any good, you're not getting them back. Tough luck, buddy. I've used the Citadel Contrast range. I have a few in my collection, but I haven't used the Army Painter Speed Paint range, and that begs the question. Now the hype for the speed painting range is over, is it any good? I thought the best way to test these paints and how they work is on several different miniatures with different textures and different armors, skin tones, things like that. Also, I thought it'd be interesting to see how they react with different undercoats. The minis I have chosen for this experiment were 2 Space Marines and 2 Orc Boys. The reason I chose these 4 minis is because I think there's a lot of good range of textures and sculpted details. The undercoats that I went for is a solid white, a solid grey, a zenithal highlight with black and white, and the one I'm really looking forward to seeing how it turns out is a metallic. Out of the vast colours you get in this box, I chose Orc Skin, because Orcs, Slaughter Red and Magic Blue. The yellow and orange and the other red I didn't end up using. I also kept the medium out as a thinner so the paints keep their natural properties. So I broke out my homemade wet palette and got my chosen paints on the paper. If getting or making your own wet palette interests you, I do have a video on how I made mine. The link is down in the description and in the cards. That side. The first thing I noticed is that the dropper bottles, good shout Army Painter, already have agitators in the bottle. These are little ball bearings that help mix the paint when shook. So even with that point, Army Painter are doing better than some infamous paint bottles. They're not even bottles, they're pots. You know who you are. The first thing I noticed is that these paints were really thin but full of colour, so it had the consistency that I would say is ready for the airbrush. I started off with the plain white base coat of the Orc and slathered on the green paint all over the mini, being careful to wick up any excess paint in the recesses. When I realised I started wiping off the white ink that I used as a base coat, it looked like I'd put too much pressure with the brush on the mini while trying to move the paint around, getting an even coverage. I think I caught it early enough so it didn't look too bad, and decided to wait until it was dry and see how it turned out before deciding if I needed to redo it or not. The next mini I chose to do was the zenithally highlighted Orc. I did the exact same thing, but being careful not to be so vigorous with it. Thankfully, doing this made sure I didn't damage the white ink layer underneath, and I did the exact same thing, making sure it didn't pool up in the recesses too much and making sure I had an even coat across the mini. With the grey and the metallic mini, I painted them in the exact same method. With the metallic mini, I had this image in my head of it coming out like Horus Heresy Thousand Suns with their red glossy armor. I had seen people do the similar thing before and it came out great. This is my first attempt at doing that sort of thing, so let's see how it goes. The best way I can think of putting it and how to use these paints is very much like a wash when you coat the whole mini. This is really strange for me, as I usually am quite aware with where I'm putting the paint and building up those layers, layer by layer. It was almost like I had to break a habit to actually paint this way, but once I got through that barrier, I actually really enjoyed it, and once all the miniatures were done, they were left to dry. At this point, it's probably a good time to say that this video is not sponsored by Army Painter at all, but the people who are sponsoring this video are my friends at Dungeons and Lasers. God, I'm good at segues. You've seen them on my channel before with the high quality modular terrain sets, but this time, I'm really excited. I'm super excited because on the 14th of June this month, they are bringing out their new campaign, Dungeons & Lasers Encounters. Not only with Dungeons & Lasers Encounters can you use it with D&D, Pathfinder and any other tabletop RPG, you can use it for tabletop wargaming. As I said at the start, this campaign starts on the 14th of June and runs to the 28th. You can find the campaign on GameFound and the link to their page is down below. Go check it out and let me know what you think. For everyone here that hits that follow button and orders just the starter pledge will get a free Terraskew model. That model is massive. It's longer than a ruler, people. There's also game mats available on the add-ons and loads of stretch goals available as well. So go check it out. As I said, the campaign starts next week on the 14th. There's loads of bundles with minis and terrain. There's Elven Woods, there's swamps, and one called Land of Giants, which really sounds awesome to me. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, hit the link below. Check out Dungeons and Lasers Encounters and let them know I sent you. Thanks to Dungeons and Lasers for sponsoring this video. There's going to be more about this campaign coming soon, so stay tuned for any more information. And now back to the video. Once they were dry, I had some interesting results. The white undercoated orc that I scrubbed some of the ink wasn't too bad, and looking at it I felt that it was more advantageous to go in with some layers after the fact and build up some colours as if you were painting them normally, rather than redoing the whole thing. I think that the blue Space Marine came out okay. The paint had really gripped the recesses, but I can't see much of the transition from those recesses to those sharp edges where the highlights would be. It was more of a shade in the cracks and the recesses, and then an okay coverage on the flat surfaces. It wasn't too bad, but I would like to see a smoother finish on those midtones, especially on the flat panels. The one I was really gutted about though was the metallic Space Marine. This guy came out awfully. It had this kind of metallic yet matte look to the whole thing, which I really didn't like. Putting that aside though, the actual finish was very similar to the blue Space Marine. The consistency of finish between the different colours is good, but painting it on top of a metallic base coat, at the moment, I wouldn't recommend. I might go back and spray this one with a gloss varnish to see if I can pick up that shininess, or even try this again but with a gold base coat instead of silver, but I don't think I'm going to get the results that I'm looking for. If you know how people have done this metallic undercoat with a transparent colour over the top, let me know in the comments, because I'm really interested to see how either yourself or how others have actually accomplished it. Last but not least was the zenithally highlighted orc, and I've got to say this guy was my favourite out of the four. Looking at him in contrast to the other three, I feel like using the speed paints alongside the zenithal highlight has really aided each other. The zenithal highlight and the speed paints have helped both define the musculature on the arms as well as the detail on different areas of the mini. I guess that's because they're both designed to do the same thing, is to pick out high points as well as leave dark colours in the shadows. And because of that, it's really came out well, and he's definitely my favourite so far. But keeping all of these finds in mind, I thought back to when I looked at my blue Space Marine and thought about the coverage and the unevenness of the actual midtones. So I decided to paint up two more minis, an orc and a Space Marine again, and put them through the airbrush to see if I can get a cleaner coverage with less blotches and less imperfections on the coat, but also retaining that definition that the speed paint has given us. For this, I've chosen my two favourite undercoats, which is the zenithal as well as the grey undercoat. The airbrushing went on really smooth. You don't get any of the same blotches or imperfections that you do with a normal brush. It's a lot smoother, as you can see on both of the miniatures, but you do lose a lot of the nature of the actual speed paint by putting it through an airbrush. And what I mean by that is it seems to lose the qualities that creates the darker recesses and the lighter highlights. Now, it could mean that I didn't do a thick enough coat through the airbrush, or that the paint was dried by the time I did the next pass on the miniature. I did try my best to do these two miniatures with the airbrush in one coat, just like I did with the brush, but that is a factor that could have played against me while doing it with the airbrush. Overall, I really like this range of paints. I don't think, though, it's any better than contrast paints. Contrast paints is a little thicker and acts a little differently on the miniature, but at the end of the day, I think they both do the same thing and they both fulfill a purpose, which makes them a tool, which I'm a little begrudged to say because I know that's a lot of other people's experiences with these, and I was hoping to find out something different about them. But I've ended up agreeing with them. These paints are a tool for me in my hobby. If I was going to paint a new miniature, I wouldn't solely pick up speed paints or contrast. But if I was going to do a certain thing with them, like quickly lay down a base coat and I wanted to quickly see a good place to put highlights and shadows, or to quickly recess shade even a miniature, I would grab one of these. Also, I found that the colours themselves are really rich and vibrant, which I like. I mean, just look at my Death Guard. And I would definitely recommend putting these paints over a zenithal highlight and maybe experiment with a couple of different colours instead of just the black and white that I did. I think that the speed paints really shine on different areas that have different volumes, like muscle or a face. I think in those areas on a miniature, you're going to get the best results. But if you're going to use just a white undercoat for them, you're going to find that these colors do go quite pastel. So if you don't like that kind of pastel look, just be aware of that and maybe change your undercoats to kind of counteract that. For instance, you could use a yellow zenithal highlight instead of white when you're painting orcs for a more vibrant green-yellow skin tone. That could really work. I might try that. That's all from me at Burnt Aquila Painting today, guys. What do you think of speed paints and contrast paints and this sort of painting in general? Is it for you? Is that what you enjoy, or do you like the more traditional sense of painting? Let me know in the comments. If you've enjoyed the video today, guys, make sure you like and subscribe. It helps me know what I'm doing and what content I'm putting out you're enjoying, and also that it helps the algorithm push it out to more people that might enjoy the content as well. Also, if you do like what I'm doing here at Burnt Aquila Painting and you want to help out, I do have a Patreon. There's 2 different tiers and it helps me get the little bits and bobs that I need to make these videos, paints, brushes, etc. You also get every so often a sneak peek at what I'm doing behind the scenes of videos that are coming up or things that I'm just painting. Also there, I'm open for any messages for my Patreons to give me ideas for videos or things they want to see on the channel. Just want to say a massive thank you to my current Patreons. You guys are awesome, and a massive peace to you. Also, I want to say a massive thank you again to Dungeons and Lasers. Go check them out. Links are in the description. The 14th of this month, next week, is going to be the start of this campaign. Really excited to see some more terrain and some terrain that we can use for wargaming as well as tabletop RPGs. And to the rest of you guys and girls, take it easy, have a good one, and until the next video, peace!